Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today we are here with Jenny from Legal Assistance for Seniors. We are Jenny is going to share with us protecting your home equity, PACE loans, reverse mortgages, and their common risks. I will pass it off to you.
Thank you. So again, I am with Legal Assistance for Seniors, and I'm going to talk just briefly about our agency and HICAP before we talk about equity. At Legal Assistance for Seniors, our mission is to ensure the independence and dignity of seniors by protecting their legal rights through education, counseling, and advocacy. We have 3 departments, so our legal department, the community education department that I come from, and our individual Medicare counseling that's available through the HICAP program. All services are free of charge. We are a nonprofit that has been serving older adults in Alameda County since 1976. The areas of law our attorneys can help with are government benefits, specifically Social Security, SSI, and the Cash Assistance Program for immigrants. So we don't enroll people into programs, but if someone is enrolled in any of these 3 programs and has any kind of problem, then they can come to us for help. As far as senior immigrant issues, we can help renew green cards. And if someone is a legal permanent resident and they would like to become a naturalized citizen, we can help with that process. Kin caregiver refers to, I almost skipped elder abuse. Our attorneys are able to do all kinds of things for clients who are having issues around elder abuse. They can help with mediation, restraining orders, connecting with services, all kinds of things that are going to be helpful for an older adult who's in a situation that may not be safe for them. And so if you have any questions about that, give our office a call. Kin caregiver issues is our lowest age threshold, so 50 and over. Anyone 50 and over, if they're taking care of someone under the age of 18 and they want to become that person's legal guardian so that they have rights, for example, at school or with healthcare. I don't know if my cat is getting in the shot, but if he is, he likes to get into Zoom sometimes, sorry.
It's okay. It's always fun to have a cat every now and again.
Hi, thank you. So we can help with all the paperwork in the court to make someone a legal guardian. Planning for the future, we do presentations on advanced healthcare directives. I like to make sure people know that we're not an estate planning office. And so we don't do wills and trusts and that full scope of estate planning. But with clients who come in for elder abuse, we do also sometimes help with things like advanced directives or durable power of attorney. It just really depends on the situation and the client. As far as healthcare coverage, I like to say that the foot in the door here is the word Medicare. If you have Medicare, should have Medicare, lost Medicare for some reason, you're helping someone with their Medicare, any of that. And we can explain and help with both Medicare and Medi-Cal since they work together. But it doesn't have to be Medicare and Medi-Cal. We can work with Medicare and any other kind of insurance someone has that works with their Medicare. And then housing. We have a limited case-by-case decided housing department. We really mostly help tenants. It's often issues of habitability. And then also evictions, which the moratoriums have not yet ended in our area, but that is work that we do when that's in place or when people need help. And then HICAP is the Health Insurance Counseling and Advocacy Program. We provide assistance with Medicare and again, any other kind of insurance someone may have that works with their Medicare. We offer objective information. So we don't sell any insurance products. We just know all about them and can answer questions. And so we really just help people understand their benefits and their options. Sorry, he's like really needy for attention right now. Yeah, you heard me. We receive funding from the Area Agency on Aging to run that program. All of our counselors are registered with the state. They do continuing education, so they're very up to date and knowledgeable about Medicare. We do pre-pandemic counseled in person at more than 30 locations, but we still do counsel a lot of phone counseling right now. We have returned in person at a very limited amount of places. So if someone needs an in-person appointment, it's possible. You just have to call us and we'll figure out why and how to get you there. And then we do these presentations so people know their rights and their options. If someone comes into HICAP and it's a difficult case, maybe it's an appeal that needs to happen, that would get referred to that legal department of health law, and then they can take the case from there. And as a reminder, all services are free. So all the HICAP services, as well as any of the legal services, are no cost. So the Homeowner Education and Protection Project, also shortly called HEP, is a project to educate older adults about the equity in their home. It's modeled and the materials come from California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, and the project is funded by the state bar. We're going to talk about a couple things today. We'll talk about understanding equity and ownership. We're going to spend a little time on PACE loans and then a good amount of time on reverse mortgages and all the things to consider under getting a reverse mortgage. Homes are important because they have a lot of things tied to them: sentimental value, actual financial value, and shelter. It's the roof over our head. So for a lot of older adults, their goal is to live at home as long as possible, to be able to preserve the equity that they've already built in their home and to continue to build equity. And then if necessary, to be able to tap into that equity to be able to stay at home and age in place. If you, most people also want to be able to pass their home to a loved one or loved ones when they die. So really quickly, we'll talk about the differences here between bad decisions or actual abuse and what is at stake. Any of these things could lead to reducing or losing the equity in the home. It could expose home equity to creditors. It could cause someone to lose their home through eviction. If you are no longer on the title, you may not have any right to stay in the home. Or foreclosure, which would be a loan default, lien, or court judgment that could cause someone to be ejected from their home. Also, you could lose control of who gets your home after you die. So I think we all know, but in the Bay Area, your home is a very valuable asset. Property can be owned in two different ways. It can either be joint tenancy or tenancy in common. A joint tenancy is if two people own the property and then one person were to die, then that full ownership would be transferred to the other person. They would now own 100% of the property. Under tenancy in common, you have two people who own 50% of the home, right? Each, that's totaling 100. And if one person were to die, the person who remains would still own their 50%, but the other 50% would not automatically go to them. It could go to whoever the person leaves it to in their will, or whoever they name as their heir for their ownership in the home. So home equity is really just a math equation. It's the difference between the appraised value of your home and then what you owe on any actual mortgages that you have left against any other debt from the home. So your equity, right, is that total value of the house minus any debt that you may have related to the home. Other debt like credit card debt and stuff doesn't count. But when we're talking about equity, we're talking about the value of the home minus anything owed against the home. So title to your home is an ownership interest, either full or partial, in your home. Title is not a document, but it's actually a legal concept that you or whoever has the title has the right to control the use of the property. It also means that the person who has title is able to transfer the interest to others. You can never legally transfer more than you own. So when we were talking about tenancy in common, right, if you have two people who only own 50% each, if one person were to pass, they could not will to their heir that they now own 75% of the home because they didn't own 75% to start with. You can only transfer what you actually have. So now your deed is the actual document, right? Title's the concept, the deed is the paper. It's an official legal document that shows proof of title. It's used to confirm the ownership rights and any transfer of ownership rights when someone sells a home. And it does need to be in writing. This is important because title is that ownership or control of the home. And if you lose title, if you somehow give it away, you've lost control of the home. The deed is the proof to who holds the title. So if there's no evidence of a deed, then there's no evidence that someone actually has title or power over the home. And if you do transfer it to someone, it is immediate and binding. There is no cooling off period. You can't come back and say, oh, I thought about it overnight and I didn't want to do that. I get it back. And once it's done, it's done. If someone loses their deed, right, which is the proof, the paperwork that they have title in the home, you can usually get it replaced. It often has a fee, but in many cases you can get it replaced through the appropriate office in the county that handles records. How do some people lose their title or their equity? Sometimes it is if someone steals their identity and pretends to be that person, then this would fall under fraud or forgery. Someone may forge your signature on a deed to create a property transfer to their name or to someone else. And they could record a fraudulent deed and put the title in their own name. So if this is fraud or forgery, if someone's pretending to be you, that is absolutely illegal, right? That is a crime that should be reported. It could be trickery. So someone might trick you into signing something or giving away title that jeopardizes that equity in your home. Often this is under the promise of care. They're going to care for you for the rest of your life if you transfer the home to them now. It could be lying about why you need to transfer the title, telling you it's going to make things easier or it's going to help you. If they tell you it's going to help you qualify for Medi-Cal, that's an absolute lie because they discount the value of one home. So if your name is only on the deed to one home, then Medi-Cal doesn't count it anyway. So you do not need to transfer it. Or lying about what you're signing, maybe telling you that you're signing a power of attorney or some sort of bill and not showing that you're actually signing the deed. So all of these would be fraud or trickery. Again, this could be reported, but you would have to be able to prove a pretty good case that you were tricked and not that you knew what you were doing. So when it comes to elder abuse or undue influence, it can occur if someone pressures you into giving away that title or jeopardizing your equity. And they would do that by putting their name on the title and telling you maybe it's so you could refinance, or it will just make things easier after you die, or it's for your benefit. For some reason for you, it's going to benefit or it's going to really help them if you do it now. Doing a transfer on death deed, and we're going to talk about what that is in a little bit more detail in another slide, but do a transfer on death deed, if it is done against your wishes, then that could be elder abuse or undue influence. And that's where someone would then transfer the property to them at the exclusion of any other possible heirs. So if you pass away and this document's in existence, then it's your home will only go to the one person listed. The deed will get transferred to them. It wouldn't be something that you could split up as an asset and have go to multiple people. Bad decision making, unfortunately, is not illegal. As long as you have capacity, you are allowed to make bad decisions. We all are. And so that can happen if you give away title or jeopardize the equity in your home through some sort of bad or uninformed decision. It could be using home equity as a bank, right? That is not a great practice. It could cause you to lose equity in the home. Taking out loans against the equity in your home for things that are not essential. So if a new roof is needed, that might be essential. A vacation to the Caribbean, maybe not essential. Up to you to decide. That's why, again, maybe it's just a bad decision. And also failing to maintain the home or pay debt on the home, or putting someone else's name on without fully understanding those consequences. They may all just be bad decisions. If there was no sort of undue influence, no coercion, no fraud that caused it to happen, it could just be a bad decision someone made. So can you be protected here? Well, the police or the attorney, district attorney, can protect you if it's fraud or undue influence. Those are crimes. You do want to report any suspected crime to police or law enforcement in your jurisdiction. And the DA can prosecute criminal cases, so they can prosecute, but they're going to have a high burden of proof. So they're going to want a really good amount of proof beyond a reasonable doubt that a crime was committed. The police or district attorney cannot protect you from bad decision making. So if you someone told you it's really going to help them out if you put them on now and you're like, okay, and then later on you're realizing that you now don't have the control over the home that you previously did, that may have just been a bad decision and you can't go and report that as a crime. Again, if you can prove that there was some sort of undue influence, then it's going to be different. It is difficult and costly to rectify botched estate planning, and it does not protect the equity in your home. So if someone messes up your estate planning or gets you to transfer something, it's very difficult to fix it. But again, if it's a crime, you can report it. So your best protection is to be proactive and informed. So thank you for being here today. This is a part of that. Knowing how to protect the title and equity will allow you to age in place and pass on your home according to your wishes. And then you want to be really careful about anything you sign or agree to. It is okay to say no or to seek legal counsel before you sign anything. Some challenges that come with maintaining home ownership as we age are mobility impairment or declining health, perhaps a lack of funds, especially on a fixed income, and concerns about Medi-Cal recovery and leaving the home to loved ones. So we're going to talk about all of those a little bit more detail here. For mobility or health challenges, it's a good idea to explore options for in-home care. Is it possible to have in-home family caregiver? Is there someone who can live in the home with the older adult and it would be a safe situation for everyone and they could provide some level of care? Or maybe if they're not living there, maybe they're coming into the home and helping care parts of the day during the week. Whatever is necessary, if everyone's agreeing to it, maybe that's the best solution. In-home supportive services is an option for people who have Medi-Cal. If someone has Medi-Cal, Medi-Cal will pay for in-home support services, meaning they will pay a worker to come help with those activities of daily living. They would just need a doctor to prescribe those hours. So the doctor would say the person needs help with these kind of tasks. They need this amount of hours per week, and then they can apply for IHSS and Medi-Cal will pay for that. I don't think we get super into how to qualify for Medi-Cal in this one, but I can talk about it a little at the end because there's some exciting news about next month. Someone who wants to be able to stay at home may also want to consider some home modifications like installing a ramp, grab bars, having a fall prevention assessment of the home so that they can make sure that they adjust anything that could put them at risk. And I'm going to give some resources for some home modifications in another slide. And then they want to consider a power of attorney and an advanced healthcare directive because those things may help put them in a safer situation in case something does occur. If there's a lack of financial resources, it would be really important to start by identifying what the money is needed for. Again, in my example here, is it for the roof or for going on a cruise? Consider alternative sources to finance that project other than the equity in the home. Is it possible to secure a loan from a family member or friend instead of pulling it out of equity or maybe even having to get it from a bank? Because then between you and the person, there could be a payment plan. I mean, I always write everything down, but there could be a plan, and then maybe you don't have to deal with that interest that you would have from a bank. Some cities have programs for seniors to take out a loan for home repair. These are really great, either no interest or low interest loans that don't require being paid back often until the person is no longer living in the home. And so some local nonprofits also provide free or low cost home repair. A resource on this slide is Habitat for Humanity East Bay Silicon Valley. They offer help through the Renew AC program. You can learn more by going to this website, and I will send this slide deck to Jessie afterwards so she can share it with participants. So the email or the website is there, their phone number is there, and you can email home repair at habitateBSV.org. So now that we've talked about equity and some of the things that it can be used for, we're going to switch right quickly to talking about PACE loans. Property Assessed Clean Energy is what PACE stands for. So these are programs where someone can get a loan to do an energy efficient project on their home. It's a state program that allows for the financing of the project, and then you get assessed through your improvements to your property are put as special assessments on your tax bill. So these are a possible solution for some people. They're not the right solution for everyone, but we are going to talk about what they are. PACE loans are operated and administered by government approved third parties. So in California, there are 3 approved groups that can give out these kinds of loans. What happens is that the city or the county creates a type of land secured financing district. That's why it's going to go on your property taxes. Then a property owner who wants to do a project voluntarily signs up for financing and is able to do their project. The lender is going to provide those funds to the property owner to pay for the project. And then the property owner is going to pay that back through their tax bill. Before using a PACE loan, you want to be aware of some of the pitfalls here. So there are potential conflicts of interest, and we like to point that out because often that financing is arranged through a contractor who may have an incentive to promote an upgrade, right? And they're going to say, of course you need new windows. It's going to be very energy efficient. Well, maybe you do and maybe you don't. We'll talk about that. This could be convenient, but the contractor does not know about your finances or what you can truly afford. Most service providers are honest, and it's ultimately up to you, the homeowner, the buyer, to make a decision. but some contractors may make misleading statements to be able to get that high paying job. In addition, for getting paid for the job, also sometimes the contractors may get additional referral fees from a lender if they arrange for the project's funding. And so there's a potential for conflict of interest. There's also the payment shock to be aware of, because if you repay over an extended period, making payments could be a burden. Those property assessments, most people pay their property taxes either once or twice a year. So you could be faced with a really big surprise expense when it's time to make those payments now that they're going to be higher. If your home loan servicer pays property taxes through an escrow account. So for that, this is where when you make your mortgage payment every month, there's an extra amount you pay that goes into an escrow account. And that helps to pay things like your homeowner insurance and your property taxes when they're due. The PACE payment might be able to be added to that monthly mortgage, and then it would make it a nice smaller monthly chunk instead of twice a year where you're getting that sticker shock. A few more pitfalls that happen with these is that the interest cost is not, it's often not the best interest rate. It's not necessarily like as high as on a credit card, but it's also not as low as if you have good credit and could get a loan through a bank. The PACE funding is fairly easy to qualify for, but that interest rate can be higher than something you would get from a home equity loan or line of credit. And so if you have good credit, you may just want to deal with a different lender. Sorry, he's so furry. And so PACE loans are not necessarily cheap. And then there's the analysis of cost and benefit. So is the easy approval for the loan worth it? The loan makes sense for someone who could not otherwise afford to do an expensive project, often due to some sort of credit problem or limited income. The projects like replacing your windows can add value to the home, but that is something that you would see when you sell. If you're just going to be living in the home, then if it's not going to cause a substantial change in your utility costs, then it may not be worth it to be making those higher payments on your property taxes. And then risk of foreclosure, and this is very important. PACE loans are secured by your home. So it's possible that you could lose your home in a foreclosure if you don't make those payments. In many cases, that PACE loan moves to first position, which is actually now ahead of your own mortgage lender, meaning that you could risk foreclosure even if you make your regular mortgage payments. If you don't make those higher property tax payments, you could be at risk of foreclosure. Other types of loans, unless they are also home equity loans, would not put you in that position. So just getting a regular bank loan would not do that. I know that this has been a lot of information so far, so I'm just going to take a quick pause and see if anyone has questions before we get into reverse mortgages. I know it's a lot. Yes.
Oh, I was just going to say, for the PACE loan, is that something that your escrow company would already find out about, or would you need to be proactive in telling them about it to take more out?
It depends. They'll find out eventually. They may not find out by their next property tax payment. So when they get that bill, they may go, what the heck happened here? We weren't prepared, we weren't collecting enough to pay this amount.
Yeah.
And then you will get a notice from your lender that your escrow account didn't have enough and that you are going to have a different payment schedule and it's going to change and blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't hurt to notify them ahead of time, like while you're doing it. But they will find out eventually when they get their property tax bill. And then you may have to have a conversation with them about your monthly amount that you're paying going up. So yes, no, maybe. It's our favorite answer at High Cap.
And
eventually, yes.
And then the other question is, I see a lot of programs for solar. Will they specifically have to say if it's a PACE loan? Because in most of the solar things, it hasn't identified as a PACE loan.
So they should be disclosing if it's a PACE loan. And some clues would be, obviously, if you don't see the acronym, but you see the whole thing written out, because maybe they're not disclosing like, oh, because you've heard PACE, but they're like, we don't say PACE. But also some clues would be like the interest rate that you're looking at, or if they're telling you it's going to be tied to the property taxes instead of a monthly repayment, then you're probably dealing with some sort of PACE loan. And like, that's another one of those, like we talked about the windows, the solar panels too, maybe you're going to see more actual benefit out of that right away if it's actually going to change your costs. If you run a lot of like heating and air conditioning and stuff like that, it might make a really good dent in your bill. But if you're like a lot of homes in our area, they don't necessarily have air conditioning unless people have added it. So, it may not make a huge dent. I will say we put panels on our house in 2017. And it was very much a trade-off. Like the amount that we were paying on the panels was a trade-off for how much we were saving on the PG&E. It wasn't necessarily that we were saving a ton on the panels, but it made me feel really good as a human to be using solar energy instead of just like PG&E. So that was how we got there to make that decision about our house. And then eventually we were doing a different project, so we had folded it into that, and so like now the panels are paid off, and it's not even, now our PG&E bills are just low and it's great. But everybody's situation can be different, so just because that's like was a great one that worked out for us doesn't mean it's the same for everyone, and you really want to consider those things when you're considering these projects. Great questions, thank you. Were there any? I didn't see any in the chat. Were there any others?
I have a question.
Yes.
I contracted through Sears to get a furnace through the Hero program. And when I signed that contract, I was not aware that I was signing for, it actually turned out to be a second loan on my home.
Okay.
And what recourse do I have? Because I was not made aware of that when I was contracting through Sears and the Hero program. And I wound up paying the Hero program $235,000 as a second on my house for a that was a price too, $16,000 HVAC system. So what course do I have in that?
It's a good, how long ago was this?
It was,
I'm only asking because you said Sears, and I was like, that sounds like it might have been a while ago.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Okay. I am not sure because I'll say the thing that our attorneys like me to say. I'm not an attorney, so I can't give any legal advice. I am not entirely sure because it's a contract. So now any issue over it would be a contract dispute, and it's not one of the areas of law our attorneys practice. However, if you were to call our office and say what happened and that you need a referral to someone who does contract law, our receptionist would be able to look that up and try and give you the right direction to go, because you want to be talking to an attorney who deals with contracts.
Okay, I certainly will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope that you can get some help with that, because that's insane inflation on that loan for that item. Yeah. And I don't have the answer, but I want you to be able to get the answer. And so I would say call, what's today? Today's Thursday. Even if you called after this and talked to the receptionist, she should be able to find a referral for you.
Okay, I certainly will. Thank you for that.
Okay, cool. All right, I am gonna, unless there's anything else, I'm gonna go back into the slides. There we go. All right, now we're gonna talk about reverse mortgages. So these are designed for homeowners age 62 or older, and it allows them to borrow against the equity in their home. The loan is due upon the death of the homeowner or if they move out of the home. If the homeowner can't meet their financial obligation for the loan, including maintaining the home, paying property taxes, and paying homeowners insurance, then the loan could go into default and foreclose. So we don't have a more up-to-date statistic, but from 2009 to 2016, it was expected that 18% of reverse mortgages would end up going into default, and that was a figure through HUD. So, I mean, 18% is not great. That's a pretty big percentage of people who maybe didn't understand what they were getting into when they got into these loans and are losing their homes. They have great sales pitches. I believe it's Tom Selleck. I think it's the mustache trying to sell it. They want to entice you. You can pay off debt. You can make gifts to your grandchildren. You could remodel your home with these great new projects. Take that dream vacation you've always wanted. This is a one. We're going to talk about all these in more detail, but the whole getting into the stock market, just gives me pause every time. It is not a great idea to take money out of your home and put it in stocks, and we'll talk about that. And just this idea that it's your money to play with. You've had your home, you've built your equity. Why not put it to your use while you're alive, right? That sounds great, other than it gives you an 18% chance of losing your home later because of the risk of the loan. So when you get into a reverse mortgage, you have the obligation of your property taxes. They must always be paid. Your homeowner's insurance has to be kept up, and you have to maintain the home, right? Keeping it like a good roof on top, making sure there's not insects or any kind of rot, these kind of things that would be regular home maintenance. And that's because the bank now has a stake in the quality of your home, because they're going to want to be paid back their loan either when you're moving out of the home or when you die. So if you fail to meet these obligations, it could put you into default and make you at risk for foreclosure. When you're considering a reverse mortgage, these are the questions I'm asking you to think about. So if there are other people living in your home with you, what's going to happen to them if you die or if you move out? What if you have to move into long-term care, right? That's moving out of the home. What would happen to them if you defaulted on your reverse mortgage? Where would everyone go? Have you fully explored other options? And we're going to talk about some other options. Are you intending to use the reverse mortgage product to purchase a financial product? I'm just going to again say don't do that. And then what is the impact of that reverse mortgage on your eligibility for any government assistance programs? And we will talk about that. So there is a link down there for a fact sheet from CANR. CANR is the California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform. And they are, again, part of who funded this and an excellent resource for many things that we're talking about today. So every borrower should ask themselves, who is currently living in the home and what would become of them if, again, you die or have to move out? And then have you discussed your plan to get a loan with everyone living with you? Because if you have, let's say, adult children living in the home, is it possible that they could start contributing more to the expenses of the home now to avoid getting that reverse mortgage and being at risk of foreclosure later? If you were to default on the loan, can you find the funds to catch up and get current with your taxes, insurance, or home maintenance, right? Because if you can't, again, you're going to be at risk of foreclosure. And if you were to get foreclosed on, would you have enough money to finance a new home, an apartment, or assisted living? So another resource for options other than a reverse mortgage is the site Keep Your Home California. And they have information about unemployment mortgages, mortgage reinstatement assistance, principal reduction programs, and reverse mortgage assistance programs if people have gotten into these reverse mortgages and need help. Some people consider an interfamily loan. There's a toolkit here as part of this project that helps people understand what an interfamily loan could look like and how to set it up. The benefit here is that it preserves all the equity in the home. It can be as flexible as you want to design it to be between you and the family members involved. And it can accommodate all kinds of different family contributions, such as in-kind care contracts. What would that look like? Maybe you have 2 adult children and one is able to make part of a loan, right? Whether it's to catch up on something or pay for projects or just keep the mortgage paid in general, right? Maybe you have one adult child who's able to make some contribution towards that, but you have another adult child who is either not working or not working enough to contribute financially that way. But maybe that other person can come in and help with some of the care that's needed. That would be an in-kind care contract, saying, hey, the value of this person's time and the effort of the work that they're doing is going to be recognized in the same way as someone who's contributing financially, because you're preserving this asset that maybe you want to leave for both of them later on. And you don't want the person who's contributing the money to come in later and say, well, the only reason we even have this asset is because I put all this money into it over those years. Well, that's great. And maybe you did, but also who was here helping with all of the things that needed to get done to give you the ability to stay in the home, right? So these are really important things to look at, consider, and think about instead of a reverse mortgage. All right, I told you I would tell you why financial products are bad. So the debt of a reverse mortgage loan is more likely that it's going to outpace any interest that you generate from a legitimate financial product. Now, of course, we don't want you contributing to illegitimate financial products, because that's probably some sort of scam. You're getting told you're going to get this really high return, great interest, whatever. It's very likely a scam. I'm going to tell you right now, hang up the phone, walk away, don't do it. And then the other thing to consider is how liquid is the financial product you're considering. So if you suddenly had an expense for the house, could you pull the money out of that financial product and then do what you need to do to be able to maintain your home? So not a great idea to pull money out of your equity to buy a financial product. Sorry, now the dog's here. And you can see the charts here that the reverse mortgage balance and interest over time is not going to keep up with any, again, legitimate financial product. So long-term care concerns. If you are not staying in the home and you need to move into a nursing home for an extended period of time, that reverse mortgage could become due, and your house would probably either have to be sold in order to pay off that loan, or yeah, well, that's it. There's no or. That's probably what would have to happen. Proceeds from that sale would disqualify you from getting Medi-Cal in most cases. Now, when we wrote this, that's definitely been true because the asset limit for Medi-Cal for a very long time has been $2,000 for an individual or $3,000 for a couple. That has not changed in more than 30 years. I can pretty confidently say that if someone were to sell their house in California, they would end up with more than $2,000 or $3,000 in their bank account. The reason I'm saying maybe, and the only reason I'm saying it now, is because July 1st, the asset limit is going way up. It's going from $2,000 for an individual to $130,000 for an individual. And again, that's money in the bank. So if you are not selling your home, if you just own your home and are on the title, they're not counting the value of your home at all. But if you were to sell your home and you were an individual, you could not have more than $130,000 in the bank, or you would not qualify for Medi-Cal. For a couple, it's slightly more. It goes up by another $65,000 and is going to be $195,000. Those are going to be effective July 1st. So if anyone didn't qualify for Medi-Cal previously, but with that new asset limit is now eligible to qualify for Medi-Cal, you can apply now in June to make it effective July 1st when those rates go up, and you can actually have Medi-Cal to supplement your Medicare. But that is a whole different talk. So that is all I'm really going to start on that for now. So then the question is, where I'm saying proceeds of the sale could disqualify you from getting Medi-Cal. Again, a home in California is probably, if you've owned that home for a long time, you've got a lot of equity, you're likely going to walk away with more than $195,000 for that couple, or $130,000 for the individual. So it could disqualify you from getting Medi-Cal. I think that would be the case for most people. So if a Medi-Cal recipient dies, the state, and sorry, let me stipulate there. If a Medi-Cal recipient who is in long-term care and Medi-Cal is paying for their long-term care facility, if that person dies, the state of California can seek repayment for the cost of certain services received, including any payments back to a managed care plan. So if you just have Medicare and Medi-Cal and you do not live in long-term care, Medi-Cal cannot seek any kind of repayment. This is only for people who are using Medi-Cal to live in long-term care. A reverse mortgage interferes with the ability to transfer the home and avoid Medi-Cal's recovery claim. If you have more questions about this, the experts, the people to call, are California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform. CANR is excellent, and they can really help deep dive into these questions. So as of January 1st, 2017, it is only those who are receiving nursing home or home and community-based services that would have their home subject to estate recovery. It is exempt from estate recovery if property is transferred prior to death, if it is not subject to probate, likely meaning that it's in some sort of trust, if the homestead of modest value, or if it is a homestead of modest value, meaning that the fair market value is 50% or less of an average home in the county. This would have to be perhaps a home that has not been kept up at all and would not sell for at least 50% the fair market value of other average homes in our county. Life insurance is not subject to estate recovery because life insurance goes to a beneficiary and technically is not the person who died. It's not their property. So it's something that gets paid out to a beneficiary and therefore would not be subject. And of course, my bar is covering the last one. Oh, retirement accounts are not subject to estate recovery because those also would go to a beneficiary when you die. So the other exemption here is if the Medi-Cal recipient is survived by a spouse or registered domestic partner or a minor or disabled child. So if the person is, right, let's say the person's in long-term care and they pass away, can Medi-Cal come back and try and do estate recovery on their house? If there's a spouse still living in that house or registered domestic partner, no, Medi-Cal cannot do estate recovery. If the person who was in long-term care has a minor child, whether or not they're disabled, Medi-Cal cannot do estate recovery. If they have an adult child who is considered dependent, if they have some sort of disability that qualifies them to be an adult dependent, in this case, we would say an adult dependent child of that person, Medi-Cal cannot do estate recovery. So if any of those conditions are met, estate recovery is prohibited and forever barred. But if it's the one person, right? They're not married or they've outlived their spouse. They end up in long-term care. They've got adult children who are not dependent. They're just, out doing their thing in the world. And that person passes away. Then Medi-Cal could come back to the estate and say, we want to recover costs that we paid for this person to be in long-term care. Transfer on death deed. I promised we'd come back to it. It's a way for a homeowner to transfer upon their death residential property named to the one beneficiary that they're listing. The positives for this are that it is simple to use. It's less expensive than creating a living trust. It eliminates the time and expense of probate. It remains revocable during the lifetime of the grantor. So as long as you're alive, if you want to change it, you can change it. Now, if you want to change it, but you don't change it and it's in place when you die, then whatever's in place is in place and that's what's followed. And it does simplify the transfer process at death because again, it keeps the home out of probate. It just transfers it to the person identified. However, there can't be any contingent beneficiaries. And I hate to make really awful examples, but I'm just so good at it. I will. If my person that I planned on transferring my home to, if we are in a car accident together and neither of us survives, then there's no one for the home to go to. And so now everything is going to go through probate, all of the normal things that would happen when someone dies if there's no sort of estate plan, and it's all going to happen. It could encourage elder abuse because someone, well, lots of situations, but someone may want that home to be their property. So a lot of things could happen. And there's just a risk of that. It has no protection from creditors. It's restricted to certain types of residential properties. It does have to be completed properly or the transfer is voided. And if a botched form ends up in probate court, there could be, again, that risk of Medi-Cal estate recovery. So if someone is considering a transfer on deed death, they really want to make sure that they're doing it correctly for the right reasons, and maybe get some help in making sure that it's filled out properly. Some additional resources are the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Homeowner Education and Protection Project that funded this presentation, and the Housing and Economic Rights Advocates, HERA. So the websites for all are there. The phone numbers for all of them are there. I will pass this slide deck along so everyone has access to it. If you need help with any of those areas of law that I covered at the beginning, or if you want to talk to someone about a Medicare question, you can call our office. Under that HICAP, you can also see there's a statewide number, and that is because we run the HICAP program in Alameda County. If someone anywhere else in California wants help from their local HICAP, they can call that statewide number and get routed to their own local office. If you were like, wow, I know other people that need to see this presentation, let me know and we can organize it for any other group that you think would benefit. And I don't think the volunteer one's on here, but if you were like, wow, Medicare is so interesting, I want to learn more about it and help other people with Medicare, you are an ideal volunteer. So give us a call, let us know. We train our volunteers in everything Medicare related. If you're just like, man, it's confusing and I want to help people with insurance, that's exactly who we look for. All right, I think that's all the slides. Yeah, I'm gonna hit it one more time. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing the screen for now. I can always pull it back up if people want me to refer to something specific, but that's all the slides. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions. I know
Great.
I've talked at you a lot.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording here.